hello, hello, Freedomizers. Welcome to the Thursday, December 4th, 2014 edition of Zone 13, the best afternoon news show on the web. We're broadcasting live from the studios of FreedomizerRadio.com. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host Scott Ferrarello is here with me too, and we appreciate you tuning in with us. Thank you very much. Our call-in number is 347-324-3704, but please hold off on calling in for a bit. We have a lot to get to, and we can take some calls later. Our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and right here at FreedomizerRadio.com, are open for you. At Freedomizer's home site, you can both chat and listen if you like. Let the site load, and on the right-hand side, you'll see the word chat. Just click on that, and it'll bring you right over there. Our wonderful colleagues, Lynn, AstroTurf, and Famous Anna, are in the chats putting links, source documents, and other important information into the chats so you have them available for your own records. And thank you, ladies. You may run into several of our colleagues in the chats, by the way, so please say hi to each other when you get over there. Our colleagues are more than just people who put links in chats. They're our research team, our production team. They're just, they're the greatest. Some of them even have their own newspapers. So like I said, please say hi to each other. Today we have a big show planned. We're going to be sharing the results of our investigation into the Ferguson saga, which has now spilled over into the New York saga as well. And it's not what you think. We also have many news stories to get to, too. At the top of our second hour, we're going to have a special guest as well. Our colleague and resident financial guru, Carol Ray, will be here to give us an economic report. Then she's going to detail the real state of our economy, especially about oil and gold and other important facts that you really need to know. Before we begin the show, though, I'd like to do a short disclaimer, and that just lets the feds, the FCC, NSA, DHS, and anybody else who might be interested, all those alphabet agencies, know that anything we say on this show is solely my responsibility and not that of our wonderful sponsor, Freedomizer Radio, or their many valued advertisers. Our disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts, guests, call-in, or chat commentators do not necessarily reflect the beliefs, opinions, viewpoints, ideals, or anything else of FreedomizerRadio.com or their advertisers and sponsors. The show is also rated PG-13, so please handle your children responsibly. We don't swear or anything, but, this is a little over their heads. Anyhow, now that we have this out of the way, let me get to my great co-host. I'm going to open up Scott's microphone and give him a proper hello, if I can get his microphone open. Come on, baby. Scott. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Ferrarello. Welcome, Scott. Couldn't get the microphone open.
How you doing?
No, not too bad. Not too bad. Boy, it's been crazy. This country's gone off its lid here. Oh, God, it's awful. I just saw a report as we were coming on air that said that tomorrow, Obama's going to nominate Defense Secretary Ashton Carter. He's the number 2 guy over there, and they passed him over to put Hagel in. So he resigned, but now he was back as second in command. They've been grooming this guy for a while, and he's there. He'll be there to slash the rest of our military. That will be his job. His job was to slash their. I'm sorry.
Another rubber stamp with eyeballs.
Yeah. Well, he's there to finish off the job. Hagel slashed the budget. Now he's just going to slash the personnel and all that. Also, the House passed the NDAA, and it's going to be sending it over to the Senate next week. So I don't even know what the details of that are yet. That just happened. Anyhow, we have a big show today. Big show. Anything you want to bring up before we get into it?
No, go ahead.
All right. Well, I can't believe what's going on in this country. Absolutely. It's just, we've gone off out of our minds. This Ferguson stuff, over the past weekend, our colleagues and myself have been doing an investigation. We have not only found that Ferguson is so bogus, but we found that it's been planned. It was actually an urban renewal program. And when I say urban renewal program, there is a corridor program. Now, last week we told you that Ferguson is located in between two major highways and two major thoroughfares. I was thinking that was where they were going to put the new stadium, but as it turns out, the stadium's not going there, but it is a corridor that goes between that 4.5-mile stretch of West Florissant, where all these riots are being held, through the city of Delwood into St. Louis. And like I said, the location is on that main thoroughfare. They're also looking to woo the college students that they got a couple colleges around there, and they want the college students to move into Ferguson. That whole 4.5-mile area was slated to be raised and revitalized, so it was going to burn anyhow. Well, now they had the place. All they waited for was the opportunity to burn it down. It's a lot cheaper to burn it down than it is to pay for bulldozers and construction crews and all of that. If you burn it down, the insurance company's got to cover that too, so it doesn't even cost the city. Anyhow, the riots were enacted to burn down what was already slated to be raised. Now, I say they were enacted because there's a woman who is there, and she's been there since August. Her name is Lisa Fethian. Lisa Fethian is the best in the business. If you want to cause riots, then she's the girl you call. All right, that's her job. That's what she does. She creates chaos so the rest of her comrades can come in and create the solution. You got to create the crisis first. Well, Lisa Fethian gets paid the big bucks for this, so someone's greasing her. You also know Al Sharpton's there. You know that Governor Nixon, I call it a circus, so on opening night, Governor Nixon could not be reached by his lieutenant governor or the mayor of Ferguson as the place was burning down. Governor Nixon's the only one who can activate the National Guard. He was, however, on the phone with Valerie Jarrett and Eric Holder. So that, again, tells you that this is completely orchestrated, and it's orchestrated not in the street, but right in the White House. We've done this so many times. We did it with Occupy. We told you all the people. We told you about Bloomfield's properties and how it's run by Mayor Bloomberg's girlfriend. She works at Bloomfield Properties. That's why Zuccotti Park was chosen, because they owned it. You know, and this is the same type of deal. Only this is an urban renewal program. You know, I'm not politically correct, but back in the day they used to call it Jewish lightning. And anybody who's my age will know what I've said. That wasn't racist. That was just what they called it back then. Anyhow, if it was Italian lightning, it would have been done by Attitude. So I think maybe there was a little Italian fire in there too. But, you know, that's all joking aside. This is serious stuff here. Now, Obama came on TV yesterday, and he was telling lies. Matter of fact, Scott, you posted this. From the Daily Caller. It's really even remarkable lies, even for Obama. In his comments on the Staten Island grand jury's decision not to indict the police officer who killed Eric Garner, now this is the New York case, Obama said, "My tradition is to not remark on cases where there still may be an investigation." I hear you laughing over there on those words, Scott.
Well, it's just such blatant lies. I mean, I can't even believe he even believes it. There's just no way.
Yeah, well, you know, he's got an awful short memory. He involved himself in the Trayvon Martin thing. As a matter of fact,
Everything.
The whole DOJ.
He comes out and makes a comment on anything when it's, sets the narrative
the
for whatever they want to do.
Yep.
I mean, he doesn't even wait for the facts to come in before he opens his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's got the gall to sit there and say it's his tradition not to open his mouth. I mean, how do you say that with a straight face?
Tradition.
God.
You know, at the bottom of this article it says, Orwell was an amateur. Is that the quote of the day or what? Orwell was an amateur. These people got it going on. Let me tell you something. If I was going to pull a coup on this country, I would use the exact playbook as them. Now, you got to be real sinister, and you have to be able to get down in the dirt and the gutter, and you have to be ruthless. And if you can pull it off, this is the one to do it. This is absolutely the plan. When he came out in Germany and said, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And then Oprah said, he's the one. You know what? He is the one. He really is. They have been putting this in place for so long, and they finally got one in the top job. They finally got one of the radical communists, American-hating, Marxist, whatever, in the White House. They got him in the top job. Yes, he is the one. And we are in big, big trouble.
Well, people haven't paid attention to anything for years. I mean, you know when he's in the hallway and he's giving the speeches that are on TV, the big hallway with the red carpet. I mean, there are two towers, behind him. They're like statuettes or whatever. They're two fasci. I mean, they represent fascism. I mean, and this has been this has been the decor of the White House since it's been erected, but nobody even notices it. I mean, they tell you things in symbolism all the time. It's it's like when he hung that Chairman Mao Christmas ornament.
That's exactly
what do
I
you
was
think?
just going to say.
Would you hang that on your tree? I wouldn't. You wouldn't. Nobody would.
Absolutely not. Who in their right mind would hang a Chairman? What does Chairman Mao have anything to do with Christmas?
Oh, I don't know.
He was a communist. That was
mass
symbol.
murderer.
Yep.
That's what you're going to hang on your Christmas tree. A mass murderer.
That was an in-your-face.
Your face. Look what I can get away with, and the media won't even report on it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the globalists like Henry Kissinger and them sitting around in a room just laughing their butts off at this?
Oh, absolutely.
Or when he goes and seats himself at the UN head table, breaking all kinds of laws, holding two heads of state offices at once. I mean, all these impeachable offenses, and they just get a kick out of it because he can do whatever he wants.
Well, yeah, because they got an ace in the hole. They'll say, if you even open your mouth about that, you're a racist. You don't like black people. Why, you scoundrel. You got white privilege. How dare you?
And that's just another, that just comes right out of Saul Alinsky's playbook and Communist Manifesto. I mean, they even, look at Fox News. They feed people just enough truth to make you think they're on your side. But, they ignore all kinds of things that they could put a spotlight
on. I do.
On.
I watch Fox. I won't deny that. However, I watch them in an impartial way, and I catch them. The other ones are much, much worse. You're right. The Fox does give you a little bit of truth. But specifically speaking of Fox, and I like Fox, but, yeah, they do leave an awful lot out. I find myself saying, well, why aren't you talking about this? We know about it. We've put it all over the web. You're the broadcast media. You're reaching the people that the web doesn't. Maybe you might want to clue them in a little bit here. We spend every waking moment doing research and posting articles and sorting it out and summarizing and explaining it in shorter form to people. They're finally getting it, a lot of them. I'm seeing an awakening recently. Just recently, too, within the last 2 weeks. But, there is a lot left out. And they're not telling you about the communists. They're not. The only one on Fox right now that had the nerve to come out, actually, and hint at it was Greg, what's his name? The guy on the side there. Gutfeld. Yeah. Yeah, he had the nerve to call Bill de Blasio, Comrade de Blasio, yesterday.
Well,
it was the first.
But de Blasio doesn't even hide it.
No, he'll tell you to your face he's a socialist communist.
Right.
Yeah.
Another Chairman Mao groupie is Cuomo, Governor Cuomo. But you'll never hear anybody criticize him for that.
He's a flaming communist.
His brother's on CBS or one of those 3-letter stations, and they get. All Fox does is they prop up the controlled opposition. I guarantee when Chris Christie or Jebediah Bush gets nominated in a year or so, They're going to be behind him like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. When, in fact, Rupert Murdoch has endorsed Hillary Clinton already. I mean, he's already said he'd be behind her 100%.
Oh,
so what does that tell you?
Yeah. Jeb's real name is John Ellis Bush, by the way. That's his initials. It's Jeb. I always thought it was Jebediah too until I moved down there.
Oh, I see. I figured they just named him after Jeb Clampett from Beverly
No.
No,
John Ellis Bush. His real name's John.
I like Jebediah.
I like Jebediah too, actually. Now
it fits him better, with his cross eyes, and he looks like he just crawled out of a bale of hay somewhere.
Hayseed. Yeah, let's get back to this Ferguson stuff for a while, because not for a while. I want to do a quick thing on this, but first it was Ferguson, but it really wasn't. The first time out was the Trayvon Martin thing, and a friend of ours, Sully, came up with a nice flashback today. Now, when Scott posted that Obama was lying and he doesn't get involved in this type of stuff, you all know he was already shooting his mouth off about Ferguson while the grand jury was deliberating. So did Holder. They both shot their mouths off, and that jury was not sequestered. So, guys, you've got to understand the kind of pressure that those people were under. And they still didn't vote to indict that cop. So if there was a possibility of anything that they could have come up with to indict that man, they would have. That would have calmed a lot of things down, unless they were told not to.
That's exactly right. And they may have only gotten the information from the, one side. They could have just said, this guy was committing a crime. They don't tell what crime it is. They say he was told he was under arrest and he didn't comply. That's all they are told. So they figured, the guy was just doing his job. But you know what? This is strange because this time it's a different story. With Trayvon Martin, he was clearly attacking the guy. I mean,
and with Mike Brown,
could have feared for his life. Michael Brown, he's clearly attacking the cop, could have feared for his life. And
but not Eric.
Right, but this is different. And do you know, 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago, it was procedure for cops, before they could even use their gun, unless they were going to be attacked, they had to yell halt 3 times in the air and then shoot a round off in the air.
Mm-hmm.
That was the actual protocol for back in the day.
Yeah.
And now it isn't. When you come upon a suspect who's, by the way, clearly overweight, out of shape, he's mentally disturbed, he's probably not all there. You got 6 cops or 5 or 6 cops standing there. You could have had 2 cops grab his arms, put him up against the wall, and they could have dealt with him. I mean, this wrestle you down on the ground and put you in a chokehold thing. That's steroids and ego and because we can mentality.
Yeah, see,
and you would think that after this Ferguson thing, they would have been told, hey, you know what? Go a little easier on the people out there because we don't want riots starting in New York City or your job's going to get a whole lot harder.
Yeah, well, this case with this man, Eric Garner, started before Ferguson. But, I'm seeing it from a different angle, too. And there are a lot of things that went wrong with that takedown. And, first of all, I don't think that it was intentional. I mean, they didn't just set out to kill this guy. They were sent out to hassle him, though. Who sent them out there? Now, this guy, as Scott just said, he was overweight. In the autopsy report, it said that he had asthma, heart disease, and obesity, too, and they were contributing factors. The autopsy said that he had bruising on his windpipe, which would be painful, but it would not cause death unless there were underlying factors. The autopsy report is a little concerning because they used the word homicide. The guy died of homicide. That just means unnatural causes and avoidable causes. It doesn't necessarily mean murder. And people are confusing that. I don't even know why that was there, actually, because that doesn't seem to be a medical finding. You know, the windpipe part was, and the rest of it, but that wasn't it. I wrote a little bit of a rant this morning, and I'd like to indulge myself with you, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I wrote, I'm very upset at what's going on in our country. The chaos that's being enacted straight out of the White House is a strategy, not a response. They're dividing us. They're destroying our constitutional framework. They're creating violence and hate. They're using our own money to destroy us. The Democrat Party has gone full-blown communist, and the Republican Party isn't far behind. Our police officers, on the whole, are good people. There are bad apples. This is true. But on the way they're being portrayed is that they're all militant, jackbooted thugs who are waging war on innocent citizens. That's not entirely true. The surplus military equipment has been stripped of its military components and no longer are classified as military equipment, but people don't know that. The equipment, however, came with strings, which we're about to find out. The White House, by way of executive order, just nationalized the local and state police, using that equipment as the vessel. Obama has a police czar now who's tasked with reviewing every local case that equipment has been present at. Every local case. That's not the feds' business, by the way, but because they're using this equipment that they got from the government, it gives the government the right to go over and review every local case. All right, now, you're all not new at this. You know murder was never the intent in either of the last two cases, Ferguson or New York. Mike Brown died in the commission of a crime. Eric Gardner, that's a story I'd like to try to sort out. He was allegedly committing a crime. He was selling loose cigarettes. Although it's illegal, it's not violent. Think about what he was charged with. Selling untaxed cigarettes. Untaxed. Cigarettes are legal. They're $15 a pack in New York, by the way. Many people don't have $15, but some might have $1 or $2. So why not sell loosies? Again, cigarettes are legal. I watched the video frame by frame. I want to bring this up. And I read the autopsy pieces, and they said he had the bruising on his windpipe. Like I said, that would hurt, but not cause death in a healthy person. And the autopsy did say that he had asthma and heart disease, as well as obesity issues. They were listed as contributing factors. When the poor man was saying he couldn't breathe, I did stop the video. If you look at it, when he first said he couldn't breathe, he was already on the ground. The cop was holding his head, not his neck, and his hands were being cuffed. He was a big man. He was laying face down, so you know he could have been even just his own self crushing him with the added pressure from the cops taking him down. I'm not trying to justify any of this, so don't get me wrong. I'm just pointing out what I saw. A basic rule is, though, if you're talking, you're breathing. So, and it's not uncommon for people to say, you know, I can't breathe in these circumstances, or you're hurting my wrist, or whatever. All right, back to the story. This was definitely a tragic accidental death, and it happened in the commission of an arrest. But let's think about the crime itself. Why do we elect politicians who make selling loose, legal to smoke and sell by the package, cigarettes? How do we let them make them illegal? The politicians in the nanny state of New York price gouge cigarettes, using tax as a punishment for smoking. Remember, smoking's legal. In Florida, cigarettes are $5 a package. So why are they $15 in New York? Why is New York politicians going after that man at all? I'll tell you, it's the revenue. They created a crime to increase their own revenue, not because it's illegal, because smoking's legal. The cops don't have the power to decide what is and is not a crime. They're low man on the totem pole. The politicians are making the cops out to be the bad guys for enforcing laws that the politicians illegally created. The people voted, this is where we're getting into it, the people voted for the politicians who will collect taxes at the point of a gun from a guy selling loosies, while Al the Fed snitch, the designated White House race pimp, Sharpton, is still walking the streets after owing more than $4.5 million in taxes. Why is that? Why wasn't he taken down with a chokehold in the middle of the street? I'll tell you, Al Sharpton is there to redirect the anger. His job is to point to the cops so nobody looks at the real perps, the politicians. The politicians will do whatever it takes to keep us divided. They'll destroy anybody in the way. They'll burn down your city, incite violence, and even get people killed just to keep you from focusing on them. The left screams they want more government, and then they scream when they get more government. You see all those cops? See all those regulations? See all the taxes that are illegally being foisted on the people? See all the nationalization of police, health care, housing, banks, education, energy, even dictating what foods we eat. That is more government. While we're focused on beating each other's brains in and involving ourselves in a fight as stupid as skin, where none of us got a choice, by the way, this country is being overthrown by a communist radical regime. I blame the people. They voted these sleeper cells in. I blame the parents for not having a clue what's being taught to their children and by who. I blame us because we did this. We allowed it. We have been absentee bosses. Now the employees are pulling a mutiny on our Constitution. I blame the people for trusting the media. Media means entertainment. These people are not the free press mentioned in the Constitution. They're for-profit entities. They're not loyal to the Constitution. They're loyal to the client, to the advertisers and their shareholders. The media is going to say whatever the high-paying clients want them to say. We have to check ourselves, guys. I hope we still can, and these sleepers have not succeeded in sowing permanent hate. Stop going after the cops and each other. That's aiming really low, guys. Go after the real source, the regime. You're not going to get anywhere if you keep focusing on the targets who do not have the power. Go big or go home. The petty stuff is slowing us down and allowing the coup to accelerate unabated. There's going to be more Mike Browns and Eric Garners, and there's going to be more Zamir Bijik. Zamir Bijik is the guy that got his head caved in by a couple of kids with hammers at 1:15 in the morning, youths. What are they doing out with hammers? Woodworking class? Anyhow, people don't understand that we're all pawns. There is no white privilege. There is no privilege at all, actually. There is political privilege, though. The politicians and the big donors have it.
There's wealthy politician privilege.
That's it.
What there is.
Well, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, we may have all come here on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. He was absolutely right. You know, I have dear friends who are cops, and I'm not going to turn my back on them or lump them into a general label for them being bad. You know, my cop friends are decent, dedicated, hardworking people, and they're not what the media and the radical commies want you to think they are. You know, the next time we get in trouble, let's call Al Sharpton or one of those little commies with their hands in the air that never happened. You know, that's going to help.
Well,
they're protesting the wrong people. They're protesting on behalf of the wrong people. They should be protesting against Sharpton and the White House and the DOJ and all these radical communist groups.
You and I have very, very different experiences with police departments because, you know, in my lifetime, I've known about 300, and about 2 of them were honest and above board and did their job the way they were supposed to. The rest of them acted like Nazis, okay? They beat the hell out of you after you're handcuffed, and, you know, they don't care because they don't get in any trouble. Even if they go to court, even if you have video footage of them doing it, the police unions get them off. And this happens over and over. Do you know in Chicago, one cop was finally brought up on charges for torture, and he had 129 counts of torturing civilians on him.
Oh, my God.
And guess what? I think he got 3 months in jail, and he still gets to collect his pension for the rest of his life. I mean, it's just
I didn't know that guy.
ridiculous.
I didn't know that guy, and I know a whole bunch of cops, Scott. And I can see, you know, where you're coming from, but I can also see my own experience too. And I grew up in Boston. We had the neighborhood beat cop, Bob McLeod. He walked through Cleary Square every day.
That
you know,
was,
we knew all the
40 years
detectives.
ago?
Not
that was 40
even
years
no.
ago.
No,
this isn't 1 out of 12 anymore. Now, you know, now they look like, you know, like they're going to rappel out of a helicopter. I mean, they're all in body armor. You know, they're all wearing black. You know, they're all taught to shoot first, ask questions later. It's not defuse the situation now. You know, I mean, do you know the one guy who applied to the police department was passed over because they said his IQ was too high, and even when he took that to court, They sided with the police department saying, well, your IQ was too high. We want really stupid people that will just follow orders.
Yeah.
Then you got this sheriff in Austin, Texas, who has come out and said, we want you to snitch on anybody who you think is a gun enthusiast. I mean, this isn't happening by accident either.
That's true.
The feds have been making cops and sheriffs, sheriffs going to FBI training, by the way, for the last 15 years to militarize them, to get them into a military mindset of the citizen is your enemy for the last 15 years, for this day when they could come in and federalize them, and they are all pretty much all going to do what they are told, like good little Gestapo.
Yeah, well, see, that's a nationalization of the local and state police. Actually, your elected sheriff is the chief law enforcement agency in your county. That's why they're nationalizing the police. They're going to have to do something and get rid of the sheriffs. You saw what they did to Sheriff Arpaio. You see what they do to Sheriff Clark, right?
Yeah,
and they're not alone. They're not alone.
That's 2 constitutional sheriffs out of
there's a whole bunch of them, Spot.
That aren't.
No, Spot.
Okay.
The sheriffs themselves, not the police. The sheriffs.
I know.
They are marching in D.C. on the 10th.
Yeah,
they've had it with this, but that's what this is.
Right.
Well, his new nationalizing of the police is a preemptive strike against those sheriffs. He has to pit the police that he's nationalized against the constitutional sheriffs. We're watching it fall into place right in front of us. The states are sovereign, and the sheriffs are sovereign. They're elected by the people. Obama doesn't have any authority over them.
Well,
we have to remember that. But if you take a nickel of federal money, he thinks that he owns you.
If you want to go that far, police departments are unconstitutional. The only law enforcement that there should be locally are sheriff's departments, because for that very reason, because you elect a sheriff.
Right.
And the people can decide, hey, you're hiring a bunch of lunatics, so we're not going to vote for you next time. Well, as soon as the police departments came into play, that was thrown out the window. And they were created to nullify the power of the sheriff. But when you have sheriffs in Austin, Texas, who is calling for snitches to rat out people just because they happen to be gun enthusiasts, which, by the way, is legal as well.
Right, guns illegal.
Then what do you know? And what about the sheriff in Ferguson? In Ferguson, he could have had those agitators like Sharpton and them thrown out.
Yep, but he was weak. He was weak, and he did not have the support of the people.
Well, I don't know if the sheriff didn't have the support of the people. I think the people voted for him and put him in as a sheriff, so he could act like a constitutional sheriff.
Yeah, and then they all turned their back and decided rioting was fun, and it was more fun to go along. And that's part of the Alinsky training too. Make it fun.
Everybody's got a price. They know everybody's got a price. And these are pension hunters. Most of these sheriffs and cops are chasing a $80,000 a year pension, so they can go fishing for the rest of their lives someday. And you roll in with a briefcase full of $100 bills, and here's $100,000, man. You gonna play ball with us? How many people are gonna say no?
Look at the groups that are in Ferguson, all those communist groups, Act Now, the ACLU, even Berkeley Cop Watch, Lisa Fethian, all the groups, the Greenwood Earth Alliance, Green Action, Hack Block. Van Jones in the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, they're there. Van Jones is there in the capacity of a CNN reporter, but he is one of the biggest revolutionary communists in the country right now. He was Obama's right-hand man. He's working as a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress while he holds the job at CNN. And he was dispatched there. Of course he was. He's running the thing. Party for Socialism and Liberation, Project Common Touch, progressive youth organizations. San Francisco Code Pink is there. All these people were brought in. This didn't happen in a vacuum. Just as yesterday, after that grand jury just declined to indict the cop in the Ghana case, all of a sudden, 2,000 people show up at Grand Central Station like it was a spontaneous thing. As I was listening to the live feeds, one of the streamers was going on and saying about how many people were there and how they had marched all through Manhattan and back into Times Square, and they had all met at Grand Central Station because Al Sharpton had sent out an SOS. He flash mobbed New York yesterday.
That's what they do. That's what community organizers do. They
Absolutely.
gather all the people. You know, all they had to do was get everybody that voted for de Blasio over there. I mean,
yeah, well, he didn't just get in touch with these people. He didn't get in touch with these people yesterday. They have been practicing this. They were waiting for that. They knew this was coming. They've been organizing.
And
for
this
months
was also
now.
timed perfectly with,
Yes, with Ferguson. And next week there'll be another one.
I mean, come on. New York is a huge place. There are atrocities that the cops are doing every minute
and the
every
citizens
day.
And the criminals.
And they saw it.
Man's inhumanity to man is going on every day in every city.
And, you know, this also takes up a news cycle. So they can create a news story that everybody's going to cover 24/7 like Ferguson. So the government behind closed doors can do things like pass an NDAA where it says that military can just come and drag you away, disappear you like the gulags of the Soviet Union without being charged with any crime, without due process. I mean, without anything. There is no due process in this country anymore. There is no rule of law. There is no anything. There is no Constitution.
Well, that's the thing, Scott, right there. You just hit it. The Constitution. If we have no Constitution, then Obama has no authority. The military has no authority. The legislature has no authority, and the court has no authority. The Constitution, they get their power from we the people. If they decide they do not want to adhere to our Constitution, then they have just voided themselves and their own authority. Without that Constitution, there is no three branches and not one member of any branch.
Yeah, and this isn't a republic anymore. It isn't a democracy. It's an autocracy. And it's been that way for a very long time.
Well, that's how they can violate the Constitution, because they're not acting constitutionally, and we're not holding it to them. We shouldn't even be listening to these people. We shouldn't be following their laws. We shouldn't be allowing them to even write a law. We shouldn't be allowing Obama to sign a bill. If he is in violation of our Constitution, he has no authority to put his name on anything. He's just another Joe Schmo down the street.
When's the last time a politician has ever been punished for violating their oath of office? I mean, when's the last time? You have Dianne Feinstein, people like that coming out, trying to get rid of the Second Amendment. You got billionaires like Michael Bloomberg making end runs around governors and state legislators to enact draconian gun laws, and he's going after 12 more states, by the way. I mean, there is no checks and balances, and even the checks and balances that are there, there's no one to enforce them.
Yeah. Well, our colleague, AstroTurf, wrote us a post. Actually, it was a comment on my post, and she told us to forget the crimes. Yeah, they're minor, and who cares what the SIGs should be taxed or not. And then she agrees that the regime is using the black community as pawns to facilitate division. She says, wait and see how fast they throw them under the bus when O's amnesty really takes hold. But where she hits her point is people either do not care, they don't understand because of the pathetic education system, which is true. They don't even teach our Constitution anymore. They don't care thanks to having been brainwashed for decades. Again, that's true. And then she says, thanks to the education system, people actually agree that communism is the way to go. So she hit it right there. People are not paying attention to what their kids are learning and who's teaching them.
And you know what? I graduated in 1981. There was no, in all my years in school, they didn't teach the Constitution. They didn't really teach anything about it. I never even heard the word communism until Ronald Reagan was elected.
Scott, they're not even teaching. They're not even teaching cursive writing. How
are
they going to read our founding documents?
No, they won't be able to, and that's why they aren't. But like I said, there's no one to enforce the laws anyway, so it really doesn't matter. They just pretend that like it still matters. I mean, what does the mafia do? The mafia goes out and they buy as many cops as they can, because when you control the people that can arrest you, you got a license to do anything. Well, the government is just the global mafia, and they own everybody.
Yeah, well, the cops are low man on the totem pole. We got to think bigger.
Yeah, they are low man on the totem pole.
They got us looking at the cops.
They're the
when
first
we should be looking at them.
They're the first group that's going to be attacked by the people when S hits the fan, okay? And then they'll be able to bring in National Guard, Obama's National Security Gestapo, Homeland Insecurity, or whatever.
Yeah, well, I am.
They know what they're doing.
I'm hearing from people that are saying they're not going to turn their guns against the people. If the people act up, they're not going to go against us. If it's for the right reason. These commies running around right now getting all the attention, and we're letting them. We should be out there with them and overtaking these.
When you have sheriffs in Austin, Texas, this isn't Massachusetts, Austin, Texas, telling people to rat on their fellow citizens who are law-abiding gun enthusiasts, there is a big problem.
And any citizen who would rat on their neighbor is a slime-sucking lowlife anyhow.
Well, hey, haven't you heard the latest thing that anti-gun liberals are doing? I mean, well, it's not really new.
Guns illegal.
They've been doing it for a while, but it doesn't get any press. What they do is if they see someone with an open carry permit because he's walking around with a 9mm on his side, they'll call the police and say the guy's waving a gun around to try to get him swatted. How do you like that one?
Oh, I believe it. But, people are not standing up for their rights. They're sitting here absorbing it, watching the pictures, watching the TV, watching the live streams, and just being mesmerized by all of it. They're not thinking deep enough yet. They're not going for the source. They're just looking at the here and now. This is going on. But how did we get here? Who put all those people in the street? Where's the money coming from? Who organized this? When did this begin? They're not getting into it that deep, and that's a big, big, big problem. They don't know their rights. Half of these people don't even know the Bill of Rights. Half of these people don't even know the preamble of the Constitution or why we even have a Constitution. They think the Constitution gives us our rights. The Constitution doesn't give us our rights. God gave us our rights. The Constitution protects those rights against the tyrannical government. The Constitution's not to control the people. That's to control the government that would turn against the people. And that's exactly what's happening, and people aren't sticking up for this Constitution. Oh, it's a living document. No, it isn't. Our founding fathers have been through this before. They knew what they were doing. They lived it. And now we're repeating it. And only this revolution right now is a communist revolution, which is completely anti-Constitution. And these brain-dead twits
even teach their kids this, let alone the school. You can't trust the school system. I mean, I can't believe that parents in small communities don't get together and just pull all their kids out, because that's the only way you're going to get anything done. You can't even get it done on that level. And if you can't get a bunch of parents to care enough about their children to take them out of these indoctrination centers, they're government indoctrination centers, and they always have been. But they got people working 2 jobs just to scrape enough together so they can afford a car and a big screen TV and pay their rent, and that's it. They don't even have time to look.
They don't have time to spend with the children, and the school wants to feed your kid breakfast and lunch, and some of the schools even want to feed your kids dinner. They're taking away all your parental responsibility and rights. You know, guys, I got a story about that right now. As a matter of fact, before we go to break, I want to read something to you. This is from Nebraska, but it's also in North Adams, Massachusetts. Nebraska School District scans students' fingerprints for lunch program. Omaha, Nebraska. West Side Community Schools have begun collecting student fingerprints for its school lunch program. Students lose their ID. They leave it at home. It went through the washing machine. There were all kinds of reasons why kids didn't have an ID. And it took a lot of time for them to fish it out of their pockets and holding their tray at the same time. Diane Zippi of West Side Nutritional Services Center. They even have an acronym, WOWT. They never lose their finger, she says. Students pay for their items by scanning their fingerprint on a pad, which then connects the database housing all the students' identification, according to the news station. Fingerprints were scanned last month. About 20 families and a few individual high school students opted out. The Obama World Herald reports. Moved out of the Obama program, the World Herald reports. At the high school, the new system, along with the changes in federal snack rules, means students can now have just one account for the main cafeteria and the convenience store rather than two separate ones. So now, folks, stop this. I mean, you're letting schools take your kids' fingerprints. They say it's in a database with all the rest of the students. What if someone else gets their hands on that?
And this, you know what this all ties into eventually? It's all Agenda 21, so they can track everyone. And, you know, it just, this is what
Parents,
it's going to be.
You're setting your kids up. You're setting your kids up to be monitored like lab rats for the rest of their lives. They will know what your child eats because what that kid ordered is on its fingerprint. Okay? And then when it leaves there, who gets a hold of these records? Who has control of these kids' fingerprints? What if a foreign government, or what if a tyrannical government got a hold of them?
Yeah,
you know,
like ours.
They're kids now. What about when the kid's 40? Is the kid going to appreciate you handing over its fingerprints? I don't think I would have liked it if my mother handed over my fingerprints to anyone.
The Patriot Act turned citizens into suspects overnight. And nobody said a thing because the big bad Islamo-Nazis were going to get us, remember? The Patriot Act turned citizens into suspects. You all became enemy combatants overnight.
Yeah, well, they're telling people how convenient it is. Well, too bad. We're not in that much of a hurry that you can't stand there and wait for a kid to pull a card out of its pocket. And if you're in that much of a hurry, you're in the wrong business.
And you know where they beta tested that very first?
Well,
I call it DARPA land, but it was Disneyland. You go in and you swipe your little. You had an arm bracelet, a little wrist bracelet for little kiddies. They could just swipe their thing and ride all the rides that they paid for that day, you see?
Yeah, even an arm bracelet is better than a fingerprint or an iris scan or something like that.
Right, but that's what I mean. They do it in increments, though. You know, oh, it's just an arm bracelet, you know, what's the harm, you know? Now it's your fingerprint. Well, that's better than an arm bracelet because you can lose an arm bracelet. You know, see what I mean?
Yeah, some of the clubs.
It's all
some of the clubs in Miami.
See if there's any pushback, and when there isn't any pushback, they move the bar a little further.
This is true. And some of the clubs in Miami, they have a chip imprint between your thumb and forefinger, so you don't even have to show an ID at the door. You just wave your hand under it. And
you want to know what else they're coming out with? They're coming out with pills with microchips in them. You swallow the pill. Your stomach acids activate the chip in there, and it sort of like, you know, takes your vital signs and blah, 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 and then it sends the information to a patch that will remind you when your next pill is.
Doesn't it leave your system? Won't your body expel it after a while, or does it attach itself somewhere?
You know what? I didn't read that far into it because it creeped me out enough. But, you know, when there's a transmitter inside of you, and they've had these for a while, that are transmitting something to a patch in your arm, it's also transmitting it to Big Brother. They're going to know you know, what you're eating, everything about you, basically. You know, it's like a mini tricorder in your body.
There was a mobster in Boston who got shot in the rear end, and he had the bullet removed. He swore that the FBI put a chip in that wound in his butt. You know? Now it doesn't sound too far-fetched. They thought he was a kook then. Maybe he wasn't.
No, and they have them so tiny. They're the size of a dot on the page that you make with a pencil. I mean, you know.
Unbelievable. Hey, let's take our first break, and when we come back, our guru Carol will probably be here.
Sounds good.
And we got a lot to talk about on the economic front. This is really important stuff too. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
You are listening to Freedomizer Radio, where Freedomizers freedomize freedom.
And we are back. You're listening to Zone 13 right here at freedomizerradio.com. I'm Joanne Moretti. My great co-host Scott Ferrarello is with me, and we're glad you're with us too. Thank you for sticking around. We appreciate that. While we wait for Carol, I got a couple of things that I'd like to bring up, if you don't mind, unless you got anything else you want to talk about first, Scott.
No, go ahead.
All right, John McCain blocked Obama's Deputy Secretary of State appointment today. This is from Reuters. U.S. Senator John McCain said on Thursday he's blocking Obama's nomination of Anthony Blinken as the country's number 2 diplomat, citing sharp disagreement with the nominee's past statements on Iraq. He's totally unqualified, the Republican senator told Reuters when asked why he was holding up Blinken's nomination to be Deputy Secretary of State. He's the guy who said we're leaving behind the richest, safest Iraq in history. Look it up, McCain said, referring to Blinken's reassuring comments 2 years ago about the decision to withdraw all U.S. troops from Iraq. You know, I mean, McCain criticizes everybody, but he's right about that. You know, they were supposed to have voted on Blinken's nomination today, but that was held off until probably next week. You know, there's a heated debate going on in Congress with the Sunni Muslim group.
Crooked enough. Because if he would have, he must not have been crooked enough, or McCain would have gave him a thumbs up.
No, he's just another asswipe, a mouthpiece. Whatever Obama says, he goes along with. And if he was supposed to say that Iraq is wonderful and it's safe and we should get out of there and Obama should keep his promise, it doesn't matter what the real facts on the ground were. Do you know that we give the Iraqi military money, of course? They're paying 20,000 soldiers that aren't even there. Where are they?
Well, hey,
why are we paying salary for 20,000 soldiers who aren't even there?
The Iraq War was going to pay for itself, remember? That was about $5 trillion ago.
Yeah, it was going to pay for itself. Of course it was. Everything's going to pay for itself. No, it isn't. They're bleeding us dry. Dry. Another beheading video came out. That means we should expect to see another beheading. It was a threat, but when they send out the threat, usually a couple of days later, pretty much on Saturday, they roll another head down the hallway and say, we told you we were going to behead him. An Al-Qaeda affiliate threatens to kill an American hostage. This is from USA Today. They threaten to kill an American hostage in 3 days if the U.S. government does not respond to the group's demands. Luke Summers, a 33-year-old photojournalist, was abducted in 2013 in Sana'a. That's the capital of Yemen, according to media reports in a YouTube video. It published yesterday said he's certain that his life is in danger, by the way. The video features an Al-Qaeda official and a brief message from Summers, dressed in a purple shirt and with a shaved head. At the end, he notes that he was born in England, but has American citizenship and lived in America for most of his life. The Al-Qaeda operative, who speaks through much of the video and threatens that Summers will meet his inevitable fate if the group's demands are not met, is Nasir bin Ali Al-Ansi of the Arabian Peninsula affiliate. So now, they got another American. I got a question. Why are all these Americans over there? Are they really photojournalists and aid workers, or are they, spies or something? What the hell's going on, and how do they get their hands on all these Americans?
Who knows? I don't believe word that comes out of the mainstream media about this anyway. I mean, the bad guys are spies, the victims are spies. I mean, you need a program to tell who's who.
Mhm. Speaking of spies, you hear about that guy Kessler, Sheriff Kessler?
Oh, you know what? I was telling people 5 years ago he was a fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got attacked. Oh, he's a patriot. He's such a great guy. Blah, blah, blah. No, he isn't. It finally comes out where the guy's working for the feds. Big surprise.
Yeah, well, we didn't fall for it. People had asked us to have him on our show, and we refused. He was too radical for us. Turns out he was a Fed operator, and he said that he did it to advance his own career. He was pretending to be a patriot, and he was saying all kinds of off-the-wall stuff. Oh, we should shoot this one, and we should have this type of military and armory. And, I mean, he was like one of those freaky people. And we stayed clear of him.
And that's how you can always tell that it's a Fed, is when they are trying to incite violence, when they are trying to get people to get on board with some sort of armed revolution. I mean, half of these groups that are created, like Oath Keepers, etc., they're created to try to draw in patriots, etc., mostly, so they can make a list of who to come and get when S hits the fan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I know a bunch of Oath Keepers, and those guys are legit. And I know
a lot of them are, right? And that's why that's why the government wants their names.
That's true.
And it's really easy. Then they stick someone like Kessler in there to try to get them
names. But you be careful trusting people.
Yeah, especially when they're trying to incite violence. That's your first clue that they're
and trying to weasel his way into all the different groups.
Uh-huh.
This isn't the first time we got burnt by that, but we didn't get burned this time. There are a lot of really good patriot groups out there, and those are who he was trying to bring down. The normal, actual people who do care about this country. When you use the word militia now, they made it a dirty word, just like cigarettes and guns. It's in the Constitution. It's not a dirty word. It's civilians, citizens, trying to do their patriotic duty. They're not threatening anybody. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just enjoying their liberty and seeing it so that, other people's liberties are not trampled either. You do your own thing, I'll do my own thing. Just, don't trample each other and everybody's fine. You want to go protest, go protest. You have a right to do that. You don't have a right to trample on other people's liberty and destroy their property or deny them their freedom. But you got all the freedom in the world. You want to protest, you help yourself. Go right ahead. I admire that, actually. I admire the people who will get up and go out and protest for a cause. These people are being duped right now by the communists, but if patriot groups get out there, they got every right to get out there and protest too.
This is why letting your kids get educated by government schools without teaching them anything at home is bad, because they're not going to teach you what the militia means. They're not going to teach you what the Constitution is. They're not going to teach you about the Bill of Rights. They're not going to teach you about communism. There's no courses in capitalism you can take. All they do is spit out good little slaves and good little sheeple robots, so they can wait on the elite and the politicians that float around once every couple of years. That's it. You don't learn anything in school. I mean, everything I learned, I had to learn after I got out of high school. Let me tell you, that diploma sure didn't open up any doors.
Well, I got to tell you, they're setting us up big time. The economy, I mean, they don't even want you to look at that. They want you to see the low gas prices, and they want you to rejoice over that. And, I don't blame people for rejoicing over the lower gas prices, but there's a backstory to what's going on with the gas prices. It's actually an oil war. It's a power struggle with the Middle East, especially the Saudis and the Iranians. the United States, China, Russia, and this is a way to affect all of their economies, not just ours, but everybody's. It's also a way to put American oil companies out of business. If the price goes too low, and you know they price gouge and price fix. We've been talking about OPEC price fixing since we all met. And they figure to make a profit, they have to keep oil at $60 a barrel. If it goes down to like $40 a barrel, there's going to be no reason for these people to be running that expensive equipment and paying that expensive help and all the union and overhead costs and everything. They'll just shut down the wells, which, of course, will cause the price to go back up again. The price is down. The price is actually where it should be. But it's been gouged for so long and so many taxes. Yesterday, Obama came out and said that he's going to add more gas tax. Well, you know how much tax is on a gallon of gas?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. We figured it out. It was like $1.13 a gallon in tax, state, local, and federal taxes, just here in Florida. I was working on this with my uncles yesterday. $1.13 per gallon is just tax. Now, if the gas goes down to $1 or $2, the government's not going to be raking in all that tax money. They'll have to still keep it. If the gas goes down to $1, they're still going to have to keep it at $2.13 to break even. If they lose any more revenue, Obama's already talking about doubling the gas tax. He's not going to lose a nickel. And you're not going to save a nickel. And he doesn't care what the oil companies are doing. And then when the price goes back up, that extra tax is still going to be there. So it's only temporary. He lowered the taxes so he could get you to agree to raise the taxes. He lowered the gas price, rather, to get you to agree to higher taxes. And then when that price goes back up, you think he's going to lower the taxes? Not a chance.
Why would he want you to agree with anything? He just does whatever he wants anyway. He doesn't need anybody's agreement or anybody's approval. I mean, 70% of the people don't want illegal invaders coming over here, taking jobs away, and getting free health care and free everything else, and Social Security and blah, blah, blah. Does that matter? No. He does whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
So
these people have never paid a nickel into Social Security, but they're going to be eligible for Social Security benefits and disability. That amnesty thing, too. I want to talk about that. He didn't actually sign an executive order. What he did was he set up Jay Johnson to take the fall.
Right. Now Homeland
Security. He made Jay Johnson think it was okay to change the law. And this executive order that he set up is supposedly going to cover Jay Johnson, but it actually doesn't. He made Jay Johnson change law, which he has no authority to do. And then he didn't even sign a bill to help him out. Tom Fitton over at the Watchdog Institute, he actually founded Judicial Watch. He told WorldNet Daily that the legal status of Johnson's memo is a serious constitutional question, and it needs to be adjudicated. That means he wants to go to court. He said the entire implementing authority involves a memorandum published by DHS Secretary Jay Johnson that changes the immigration law, directing federal money to be spent that has not been appropriated by Congress, he said. He says, in my view, there's a serious question whether Jay Johnson should be impeached for taking this action, and a criminal investigation should be initiated to determine how and why federal funds are being misappropriated. So he's screwing Jay Johnson.
Well, nobody's going to be held accountable for it anyway, so.
Well, yesterday, 17 attorneys general in 17 states taking him to court. One of them is Abbott. Abbott said.
So in 2 years from now, he has some fake court date that he'll just blow off, and nobody will, there's nobody going to go arrest him for it. It's just a joke.
Yeah, well, this article goes on. It says, the White House drew attention to President Obama's trip to Las Vegas November 21st, where he was expected to sign 2 executive orders that would revise his Deferred Action Childhood Arrangement, the DREAM is there, DACA. But a close examination of the executive actions Obama actually signed shows that they had nothing to do with implementing the move he announced on his November 20th White House address to the nation. So he came out on the 20th and made an announcement. On the 21st, he signed a completely different document, and he set Jay Johnson up. Imagine that. That was a nice catch there, Tom Fitton. Hey, I see that our guest is here. Let's open up her microphone and introduce her properly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carol Ray, our amazing, fantastic colleague, who is probably the best financial guru I've ever met in my life. Welcome, Carol.
Hello, Joanne. Hey, Scott. How are y'all doing?
Hi, Carol.
Doesn't she have the sweetest voice? You do.
Hey. Well, let's see. Let's talk for just a minute. There's something that is a really important news. And the United States has dropped down to number 2 as far as the economic powerhouse. China is number 1 now. It was officially announced today.
Oh, my goodness.
So we no longer hold that agenda. We're no longer.
And you know, everybody made fun of Donald Trump for saying that.
That shallow title, you mean?
Right. I was expecting it to happen sometime in 2015, but as I have been watching this changing for the SDRs is speeding fast. Matter of fact, there are 50 countries now that are using Chinese currency, the RMBS. So it's coming along, people. And on March the 3rd, 2015, there will be a huge business forum concerning SWIFT. And this involves the Chinese currency also. They will be talking about the microeconomic trends surrounding the use of the Chinese currency for trade settlement as measured in the SWIFT latest RMB tracker. Access the key dynamics behind the dollar's dominance as a reserve currency and explore the possibility of a shift to a stately but standardized ledger system. This is March the 3rd, 2015 in New York City, and the United Nations is involved.
And that explains why they're doing a continuing resolution to that exact day. What a coincidence.
Yes, what a coincidence. That is the truth. And also in 2015, I really suspect, do you remember when the Ukraine crisis aid bill came up? And there were 2 attachments to that bill. One was the IRS, which they wanted the disclosure, or in other words, they wanted to know the corporations and organizations that were donating to politicians. The second one was the IMF reform. The reason why the GOP did not pass that bill was because of the IRS attachment. Therefore, in 2015, it's going to have to come up again because the international monetary system of the world is now hotly wanting this IMF reform, which will include the Chinese currency. And if we do not pass it and all, the IMF is now threatening to kick us out and take our veto power away from us and give it to China. So I really believe that Congress will have 2 choices. Either they will pass the full IMF reform or they'll do in segments, unless they want to jeopardize the government's stand with the International Monetary Fund, which was actually developed or created in 1944 with the Bretton Woods. And it is, as you say, and as we all know, it is connected to the World Bank, Bank of International Settlement, and the United Nations.
You're right. You're absolutely right. This is, you've been talking about this now for a few years, at least since you've been our correspondent here. And you saw it coming. You tried to tell everybody all of these treaties, all of these trade agreements, all of these G20s and G8s and all, even Lagarde and the way she got into the IMF was all indicators of what the heck is going on here. And now we've officially become number 2, and the renminbi is going to be the reserve currency, or at least the dominant in the basket of currencies, and the dollar has been relegated to plain old paper.
Right, exactly. And eventually, Chatham House, which is also the grandfather to the Council of Foreign Relations, and you can track that down in the history, and they put out a document concerning about gold becoming part of the SDR currency in the basket of currency, which that will be the low man on the totem pole. It will be valued at 4%. And this is one reason why China and Russia are hurriedly buying up gold, because they know that that's going to be part of the SDR basket, and it also will mean that they'll have more power. And I truly believe the goal of China, and I mean, I haven't talked to any Chinese, but I truly believe their goal is to be the main agenda on the International Monetary Fund. I think they want the veto power.
Carol, you're right. And you got to remember, Tim Geithner, our former Treasury Secretary, is the son of Peter Geithner, who actually worked with Obama's mother. Peter Geithner and Obama's mother worked at Grameen Bank under Yunus doing the microfinancing. They split off. Peter Geithner went to China, and, of course, Ann Dunham went back to the United States. Peter Geithner is responsible for China's 50-year recovery plan. That was 50 years ago. He has succeeded. It's like they must be giving him a gold watch today, because he wrote that plan. And not only did he write it, he enacted it. And his son became the Treasury Secretary of the United States. I'm certain that his son did not go against his father.
No,
he was particularly, he was help in taking the United States down and raising China up.
Right, exactly. And in 2009, after the G20 met in UK, he came out that the United States was all for accepting a new world reserve currency. It was in the Telegraph Daily. So, I mean, they were putting it out, but they were not telling the Americans about this. This was in a foreign newspaper, and then finally, I guess, the other news media started picking it up. But the problem was the news media was saying that the Chinese currency was going to be the reserve currency, the new global reserve currency. That was not true. It is supposed to be the International Monetary Fund, SDRs. And I'm going to put my neck way out on the chopping block, because I've read enough to understand what's going on. After the SDR is created or developed into the new world reserve currency, eventually we will have a one world currency. This is what it's leading up to. And it's at breakneck speed too. It's no longer being implemented slowly. It's wide open, and here we go, folks. This is it. This is the big move. All these small things that we've been talking about, put them all together, folks, and you see what really is going on here. Right. And let me explain something else to everybody. The quantitative easing was designed as a method of reducing the risk to banks and finance investment companies, not to create jobs or to help our economy. And the Basel I, Basel II, and Basel III regulations from the Bank of International Settlement was the planning stages of how they were going to do this. And they engineered, I'm not joking on this, folks, they engineered the financial crisis that we had in 2008.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, our colleagues and myself did an article called Toxic Trillions Missing. Between USAID, the Bank for International Settlements, and the XIM Bank, we are missing $12 trillion. $12 trillion went dark to implement this. Now you know where the money went.
You still have people out there that think that because Russia and China are part of this BRICS thing, that it's something different against the IMF, when they're all in it together, and Goldman Sachs created BRICS.
Right, exactly.
People still don't know that Goldman Sachs created BRICS.
Right. And, Scott, I don't know how many people I have argued with on Facebook, and I have posted documents, proof that the International Monetary Fund, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, and all are working with BRICS besides our own country.
Yep.
And they've been working towards this since 1967. A gentleman named Ball testified before the Senate that we needed a new world global reserve currency. And how people can deny this or why they don't want to read the documents, I do not understand.
Right.
I mean, this has
even
been a battle.
All they have to do is go to Goldman Sachs' website or put in their search engine, IMF gives thumbs up to BRICS. And right there where Goldman Sachs created BRICS, they have a plan going at least up to 2050.
Right. Exactly. And Goldman Sachs has always supported China. Matter of fact, they were supporting enough to bring Chinese students over here to our country to receive an education.
Absolutely.
And that was on their website. Now, they have moved that. They have removed that since then, but there are articles on the Internet that shows actual documents from Goldman Sachs doing that.
Yep.
And I truly believe, and I'm sorry, but I was going to say I truly believe 2015 is going to be the turning point for our country.
Absolutely, that's the beginning, and they want it all done, and they want America completely destroyed by 2025. But I don't even think it's going to take that long.
Well, they gave us the date, March
15th.
Right.
March 15th. They gave us the date this time.
Do you remember?
Usually we got to guess. This time they gave it to us.
Remember the Economist in 1988? I think I had posted on our group site where they stated this one was 1988. It stated within 30 years. 30 years was 2018. They've already pushed it up at least 3 years, starting in 2015. So they are very well speeding along, and I believe it's because a lot of people are paying attention to what the actual facts are, and they decided that they're not going to cover it up anymore.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. All right, we're running low on time. Is there any final comments you want to say to our listeners
Well,
today?
all I can tell y'all is gold and silver is being manipulated. The European Central Bank, I think it was like a week or a week and a half ago, had come out with an article that they were thinking about buying gold back from their citizens in Europe. This leads me to thinking that there's a possibility that in the future they will try to confiscate. Now, confiscating means not only gold coins, gold bullion, silver, it will mean jewelry just like they did in, what was the year, 1933, when FDR passed that executive order. And they took ladies' and men's wedding bands.
Yep.
Sure
and we
did.
remember how long we've been telling people don't even sell a broken earring. You hold on to that.
Right.
And make sure you invest in silver as well as gold.
Find
Silver
a
is
place
street
to
money.
bury it in your backyard.
In a PVC container.
They'll also be coming for your food supply. That if you stocked up, for a rainy day.
Right. And
yeah, they wanted people to rat on their neighbors who were preppers too. Remember?
Right. And Americans, I am telling you now, once this is started, this SDR as the new global reserve currency, this will be the biggest massive push for socialism. It will create a supernova state.
Yeah. And then we're all screwed, the whole world. Carol, I want to thank you so very much for being here today. Your information is always fantastic, and I look forward to having you back on every time we can get you here.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and thank y'all. And Scott, hey, bud, you're the best, and I'll enjoy it, and you are too. And we'll talk to y'all later.
So are you.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Carol Ray. All right, Scott, you got any closing comments for our guest?
No, that's about it.
That's about it, huh?
That's about it.
I want everybody to just pay attention to what's going on. Don't get sucked into this. Don't fall for that race crap. There is no racism. None of this has anything to do with racism. It has everything to do with money, power, and control. It has everything to do with a Marxist communist agenda and the global order, like Carol and Scott were just telling all of us.
You know what? I do have one thing to say.
Sure.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, well, that's the way to do it now. You got to keep your mouth shut about everything. Really, it's true. It's true.
I know.
They want you to rat on preppers. They want you to rat on people with guns. Both of those are legal.
Especially with commie sheriffs like that guy in Austin, Texas.
Oh. All right. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
All right, folks. That's all the time we have for today, and we would like to thank you very much for tuning in. To everybody who is listening, all our callers and colleagues, thank you so much. To our crew, Lynn, Anna, AstroTurf, thank you. A very special thank you to our correspondent, Carol Ray, and as always, a special thank you to my great co-host, Scott Ferrarella. Stay tuned to freedomizerradio.com all week to keep up with the latest news and info that you can actually use, and we'll see you right here again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific. On that note, Zone 13 out.